Hi everyone, we're so happy that so many of you can join us on this Saturday afternoon to talk all things careers. For those of you who this session is your first session for the Young Lawyers Making Change Festival, this is our third festival, but our first virtual festival thanks to coronavirus. The festival aims to educate and inspire social welfare lawyers for the future and to begin to build a network of like-minded junior lawyers who are committed to working in areas of law which have traditionally been publicly funded. It's a collaboration between the Public Law Project, the Justice First Fellowship and Young Legal Aid Lawyers, and we're extremely grateful to the Legal Education Foundation for sponsoring the festival and enabling it to happen. Just a quick summary of the organisers. Public Law Project is a legal charity which aims to improve access to public law remedies through research and strategic litigation. Huge thanks to Amelie, PLP's Events and Communications Officer, for all of her work behind the scenes and for sorting out bookings and being on hand today. The Justice First Fellowship was established by the Legal Education Foundation to support the next generation of students who want to pursue a career in social justice law. Each year it teams up with firms and chambers to create placements for individuals to train and become solicitors and barristers in the future. Aspiring barristers, I'm sad to say that unfortunately there's no pupilages on offer this year through the JFF scheme, but there will be a record number of training contracts available, 19 this year. So definitely check that out if you're an aspiring social justice solicitor. And for those of you who don't know, Young Legal Aid Lawyers was founded 15 years ago. It exists to represent the voice of aspiring and junior lawyers committed to practicing in areas of law, both criminal and civil, which were traditionally publicly funded. We campaign for a sustainable legal aid system which provides good quality legal help to those who otherwise could not afford it. You can join YLAL for free on our website, younglegalaidlawyers.org. My name is Tara Mulcair. I'm a solicitor at Burnberg Pierce in the Civil Actions Department, and I'm a committee member of Young Legal Aid Lawyers. We are so happy to be joined by 4 wonderful social justice lawyers. First, we have Saida, who is a trainee solicitor at Ealing Law Centre. Saida has a family commitment today, so she's going to do her talk, and if you have any questions for her, just pop them in the Q&A box, and then I can ask her the questions. Saida started her legal studies in 2009 as a mature student whilst being a single parent of 2 young children. In 2019, she started her training contract with Ealing Law Centre, and she is due to qualify in the new year. Next, we have Emma, who is a senior caseworker at Lawstop. Emma specialises in court of protection, community care and education law, and Emma co-edited Lockdown Lawyers, an anthology of poetry written by lawyers during the pandemic. Third, we have Nutan Fatania, who is a barrister at 9 Bedford Row. Nutan predominantly specialises in crime. She has prosecuted and defended clients in Crown Court trials, and also has taken conduct of a full range of hearings in the Magistrates and the Youth Court. Nutan is also currently instructed by the London Fire Brigade as Junior Counsel, assisting with a review of the evidence for Phase 2 of the Grenfell Tower inquiry. And last but not least, Ollie Percy is a barrister at the Public Law Project. Ollie coordinates PLP's EU Settlement Scheme and Support Hub. He trained with PLP with a secondment to Matrix Chambers through the Justice First Fellowship. Ollie is also the co-chair of YLAL. Don't forget, if you're on Twitter, please use the hashtag Young Lawyers Making Change or hashtag YLMC2020. If there are any events which you want to catch but you don't think you'll be able to attend live, don't worry, all of our events are recorded and are going to be live streamed on YouTube. Our panellists are going to speak for about 35 to 45 minutes, and then we'll take some questions. With the exception of Saida, we'll take her questions after her talk. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Saida.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone. Obviously, I want to speak to about how I came to do law and my career path. As Tara was saying, that I started as a mature student, and which I did in 2009. When I was reflecting back this morning, I was thinking I actually started probably a little bit earlier than that. When I became a single parent with 2 young children who were 2 and 3 at that time. I started with actually ESOL because I had very limited English, and from there I did ESOL, then I did GCSE, then did pre-access, and then did this course, access to law, which led me to the university. I had to obviously take a long route because I didn't have any qualification in this country. And as I said, I had limited English. When I went to university, before I studied university, why I decided to do law? Because I wanted to do something which is challenging. At that time, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about outside world or anything. At that time, I was thinking that I was a single parent. It is quite stigmatized in my culture, and I wanted to do something which which could challenge me and take me away from the situation I was facing at that time. And I thought law would be the perfect way to go about it. Because every time I was asking somebody for advice, what I should do, everybody said, whatever you want to do, just don't do law because it's very challenging. And then I decided, no, that's what I wanted to do. So I went to university, and when I went to university, I applied for part-time degree, part-time LLB. And that's why I'm going to give a little bit of tips that doing your research is very, very important. I don't have any, apart from my sister who lives in Manchester, I don't have any family in this country. At that time, like I'm talking about 10 years ago, I didn't have much friends either. So it was quite challenging with 2 young kids. So I was thinking I'm going to do a part-time degree, which would give me the chance in terms of childcare and commitment. Little did I know when I started, just before my first term, I realized that, oh, student finance doesn't cover part-time degrees. I don't know if they do now, but at that time they didn't cover part-time degrees. So I would say one of the biggest tips is do your research properly, because the reason I restricted myself to part-time and restricted to certain universities because I wanted to do a part-time degree. But then I found out I couldn't do part-time because student finance wasn't going to cover. So I had to then switch to full-time degree. Then again, I did my full-time LLB, completed my 2nd year, and then realized, oh, I want to be a solicitor. And if I want to be a solicitor, then I need to do LPC. Then again, figure out there's no funding for LPC. I have to take a private loan out. As I said, I didn't actually have anybody to guide me. And I had very little time to do, probably I'm using that as an excuse, but I did have very little time to do any kind of research or anything. I did go to a student advisor. Even then, they weren't telling me much. So after 2nd year, I was doing my degree at University of Westminster. I found out there is something called solicitor exempting degree, which only runs by 5 universities in whole England, and University of Westminster is one of them. If you do that degree, it's combined LLB and LPC, and it's fully funded. It's 4 years degree altogether, and it's funded by student finance. So you actually getting your student LLB and LPC funded by student finance if you do that degree. So then after my completing my 2nd year of LLB, I actually started speaking to the teacher of that, or on that course, solicitor exempting degree, and I was the only person they allowed to switch at that last stage. But that meant that I had to do 1 extra year. I didn't mind because I wasn't in any hurry. My kids were in primary school. I had childminder and all those other commitments. So it wasn't like, you know, I could go back to full-time work or anything like that. So I was like, okay, 1 more extra year, that's fine. I will do 1 more extra year because the chances of me funding LPC privately was very slim. So I thought I will take the opportunity. And what I did do I did move to the degree, solicitor exempting degree, and I completed LLB and LPC, which was funded by student finance. So that was education. In terms of solicitor exempting degree, the other best thing was, while I was doing solicitor exempting degree, there was a module where it was compulsory to do work experience. And that's how I started working at Citizen Advice Bureau, and started working as a journalist advisor. It was a volunteering position, journalist advisor. And that's where my interest grown in working in social welfare law. So that experience was definitely the starting point when I started thinking, oh, actually, this is the area of law I wanted to work. But then again, because I had full-time responsibility of 2 young children, once I finished my degree, I really had to think, okay, how am I going to support myself, my children, and at the same time follow my career path? I started applying for training. Of course, I applied so many places, as you know how challenging it is. I didn't get anything, so I applied in local authority for a position of antisocial behavior assistant, and I got that job. I worked there. I started working there as a SB assistant, promoted as a housing officer. And that gave me the opportunity to get housing experience. Again, I was working with the same clientele, disadvantaged people from disadvantaged background, very vulnerable people. While I was working there, I still continued to apply for training contract. And then training contract, it appears that when I was applying for application, with practice, I got really better with application process, because wherever I was applying, I was getting a response back. I was going through the first stage, but then interview stage, I was really struggling. So I wasn't getting anywhere. I don't know what it was, because sometimes I thought the interview went really well, but then I didn't get any offer. So sometimes I was like giving up, thinking maybe they don't want somebody like me. So there was a lot of hurdle in that case. Then I came across Justice First Fellowship program, which obviously designed, as Tara mentioned, is designed people from disadvantaged background to introduce them to social welfare law. So when I say introduce, means giving them an opportunity. If you are interested in social welfare law, that's the best way to get in. So I applied under the Justice First Fellowship, and I got the opportunity at Ealing Law Center, which was brilliant, because that's the same thing, a similar thing I did at Citizen Advice Bureau, and it also reflects the work I was doing at local authority housing work. So that was just exactly what I wanted, and it's a brilliant organization to work with. So that's how so far it's been my journey. In terms of Justice First Fellowship, what I would say is a brilliant opportunity. You get so much support from being a trainee as a Justice First Fellowship. It feels like it's a community out there, like we are like 12, 13 of us, and we've got WhatsApp group. We discuss any concern we have, any support we need. Also, the Legal Education Foundation team are really supportive. They really want you to, reach your full potential. If you have any interest, you can just speak to them, and they would, try to accommodate whatever you want to do. Also, you do a project as part of the training contract, so you are given that extra time as well to explore any interest you may have. And also they have a conference, 2-yearly conference, which is like just brilliant to make other people networking and vice versa. Like last graduate conference, we had Lady Hale giving out the certificates, which was like just brilliant. You know, I had a picture was taken, me talking to her, which was like just the like bonus of highlight of my training contract, one of the things. So and opportunity. In terms of career tips, I would say don't give up. If I could do it, anybody could do it. Definitely, I am more nearly reaching 40 than 30, so you know, I'm more nearer to 40. So I would say if I could do it with 2 young kids, having very limited English, definitely you can do it. Whoever out there listening to me, try to get work experience. That is really important. Volunteering as citizen advice bureau, law center, that is definitely something when an organization looking at your application, if they see that work experience, that is definitely really important. A degree is important. 2-1 first class, 2-2. I know it seems like, you know, you have to get first class, you have to get 2-1. Some organization obviously just highlights that you have to have 2-1. You can't even apply with 2-2. Which is important, but after having the work experience I had, I just feel like you learn so much from the work experience that paying that amount we paid, well, I paid 3,000 per year. I just don't think even that was worth it, because what I learned from volunteering at Citizen Advice Bureau, it was more than what I learned from 3 years of degree, and what I'm learning at Ealing Law Center, what I learned working with the local authorities, just, you know, amazing. These are the things. So work experience, definitely. Widen your search. Definitely widen your search. Don't narrow your search, widen your search. Don't just look at legal position that, oh, I'm just going to be legal assistant, I'm just going to be, okay, citizen advice bureau or law center. Do other work experience as well. That's absolutely fine, because you bringing skills, transferable skill. You can use that in your application. It's amazing how we pick up skills, and I think that is really, really important. Apply. Just apply. It doesn't matter rejection. It really doesn't matter. Just apply. When you're applying for an organization, background search is really, really important. Knowing about the organization, being comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable applying for an organization, I don't think it's worth applying for it. Like when there's been some places I went for application or made application, then went for the test and went for the test, and then I felt like I don't fit in that organization, and you know, so it is important. You would know what you want. When you go to the interview, just remember, you know, they need much as you need them. Ask question. Note down what you want to ask. Practice, definitely practice, a lot of practice before interview. When I went to the interview, I was at Ealing Law Center. I remember telling them that I was practicing with my children, which I actually did. So practicing, definitely. And also, actually, I put down there, just made some note, just said that be aware of discrimination based on race, gender, ethnicity. They do exist, unfortunately to say, but they do exist. But don't let them stop. People say challenge it, but I know from experience, it's easy saying challenge it, but you have to be in a position to challenge it as well. When you're going knocking door for a training contract, it's very difficult to challenge it. But just being aware of it, I think it's good being aware of it, that there is this out there. In wherever you go, you will be there. And hopefully we are getting better at it, but it is going to be there. Don't let anything stop you. Definitely not. Age is definitely not something will stop you. Not any other risk, any other challenges. We can get over those challenges. If I did, and where I am, you know, I think everybody else can as well if they want to do it. Just keep going, basically.
Thank you so much, Saida. That was so interesting and informative. If you have any questions for Saida, please pop them in the Q&A box now. Just going to see if any have trickled through. Okay, question from Tom. Saida, thank you for sharing your amazing career-changing journey. I'm also an ex-homelessness offer for local authorities. Did you have a question, Tom?
Thank you, Tom. That's great to know.
I have a quick question while we're waiting, Saida, if you don't mind.
No problem at all.
So you mentioned that through the JFF scheme you had to do a project. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so when I say we are given an opportunity to do a project, I think the main aim of the project is you doing something you like, and also you raising funds through the project if possible, because most organizations which taking part in this scheme is from either charity organization. So you kind of when you choosing a project, that project, the aim is that you're going to raise some fund through the project, so that if you raise enough fund, once the training contract finish, which is like my finishing is December, then the organization would get some assistance in keeping you in that post. So the project can be anything you like. So when you, Oli, I know going to talk about how it works, but when you go into the interview, you need to have a project, have a presentation ready for that a project you're going to be running. Or you propose to run. So for my project is I'm working with healthcare professional at a local GP. So I'm running a housing clinic there. So I'm running a housing clinic where I see clients once every month. And from there, basically, if I need to do further work, I take them on. If not, it's just a one-off advice. So it's a brilliant opportunity, to be honest, because you can do anything you want. You know, there's other people doing so many different projects, immigration project, homelessness project. Everything is a brilliant way to explore the area of law which you have an interest. So yeah, so that's part of the project.
Thanks, Saida. We've got a question from Tom. Which skills were most relevant for you in finding your training contract, particularly with respect to the interview and the application?
Which skills? Okay, I would think it was my work experience obviously was relevant in terms of work experience wise. It was working with local authority. Obviously that was a good thing. And I was working as a housing officer, so I had the experience. In terms of skill, I think at the interview, application wise, I would say the fact that, you know, I made a lot of application. By the time I reached Ealing Law Center, I think I was kind of like becoming quite an expert in applying for training contract. So I'm not boasting, I'm just saying how many times I made application. Once I get some time, I will actually sit down and count how many applications I have to make. But I think that was more of practice. Interview, I think being preparation, so my skills of preparing in advance, research skill, I would say that has definitely helped me in terms of getting that training contract, because research and then practicing, again, being organized. I thought that would definitely help me. And when you going to the interview, just be yourself, because I was by myself. When I went there, I told them who I was, because I know in some cases I felt interview I went, that the fact that I said to them that, look, I'm a single parent, look, I've got children, I've got childcare commitment, that I felt that probably that went against me. But you don't want to go to an organization which is not going to respect your commitment. So when I went to Ealing Law Center interview, I did tell them that, look, my children helped me with my interview. That's the background I have. They could tell my English, speaking English. English isn't my first language. I've still got grammatical issues and vice versa. So just be yourself, and I think that would really help you at the interview. So I think that, yeah, I think honesty is also one skills.
Great, that was fantastic advice. Thanks, Saida. We've got one more question for you. Is it better to apply for volunteering versus work experience while studying full-time?
My understanding is both would be same, because even if you're volunteering, that is still work experience. I would use that as interchangeably. I don't know what other panelists would advise, but my understanding is, even if you're volunteering, that's your work experience, and that would count. And especially if you're studying full time and you're taking your time out to volunteer, it could be an organization like Mind, a charity organization like Mind, maybe 2 hours in a shop, or it could be anywhere. A food bank or things like that, and I think you would be classed as similar. It's not what you're doing, it's not volunteering or work experience, it's how you're using that. At the moment, I'm helping my son, who's 17 years old, helping him with his application and vice versa, and I'm like, you need to just pick up on the skills you get, you have learned from your work experience. So it's the skills you're getting rather than what you're doing even. So it's putting out there, selling yourself, definitely selling yourself, yeah.
Great, we've got one more quick question which has come in. One of our attendees is also a single parent. What attracted you to applying to work locally as opposed to a large city firm?
Okay, I just never thought I would fit into a city. I just never thought that would be me. That's probably because of my background, where I come from. I'm the first one in my family to go to university, as I said, I started with ISOL and City Farm. They probably need somebody who is like Cambridge or Oxford graduate or vice versa. But that didn't even interest me. For me, it was more like I wanted to work with people from disadvantaged background. I remember when I was at the uni, I had a mentor who was working at City Farm, and the interaction with him he meant to help me with my career, and actually he did. He made it very clear that I didn't want it to be part of a city organization. Also the fact that I was a single parent, I thought the workload and the commitment, I simply cannot do that. As a single parent, I also thought that I had limited time. So I had limited time. And also I went, as a single parent, I went through the challenges, and I've seen what it's like to be, not having enough income to go by, what it's like to struggle in life. And I think that definitely made me choose this career. Like I wanted to work with social welfare law and work with disadvantaged people. I don't know if it's answered the question actually.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, everyone. A couple of questions have trickled through the chat, but I think the other panelists will be able to answer them. So thank you so much, Saida, for your time and for the inspiring advice that you've been able to give to our attendees today. You're free to go.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for listening. And as I said, just keep going. Thank you.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Emma.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to talk today. My name's Emma and I'm a senior caseworker at Law Stop. I think the reason that I've been asked to speak today is because the way that I will be qualifying will be slightly different to your typical training contract routes. So I'll just go sort of briefly through how I've got where I am today, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the way that I qualified. So I wasn't very well during my A-levels, so I didn't get the sort of grades that I wanted. So I didn't want to apply for a degree in like a particular subject because I didn't think that I'd get the grades for it. So I kind of fell into law, really. I quite liked arguing. It felt like a good idea at the time. So applied for it, started it, and absolutely loved it. Fell in love. Like I spent lots of time sort of getting involved in the societies at university, and spent time volunteering at the local law centre as well. When I graduated, because of the time that I'd spent volunteering at the law centre, I got a position managing a project at the law centre, which is fantastic. It was welfare benefits, so ESA appeals, disability tribunals, and it was fantastic because you could take the whole case yourself, you could go and do the advocacy at the tribunals, you could just do the whole package, really. So it was a really sort of exciting project. Then when I finally sort of a couple of months after graduating, I needed a full-time job because the project work was only part-time. So I decided to apply for a new job. So I applied for a paralegal position at Lyons Davidson, and I was doing personal injury. So mostly sort of car accidents, basically whiplash claims. And then sort of eventually sort of specialising in claims against sort of foreign vehicles and untraced vehicles. I found that a bit dull, really. The civil proceedings side of things was useful, but it wasn't really my thing. It was a bit sort of, it wasn't very personable, it was a bit sort of mechanical, so I decided it was, time to move on again. So then I moved to a small high street firm and practiced in family law as a paralegal for a year. I worked predominantly in care proceedings. I think I quite soon realised that family law wasn't the one for me either. I think the experience that I've gained dealing with difficult clients was second to none. Like, no clients can be that difficult. So I decided to try something new after that. And then applied for a paralegal job at Irwin Mitchell in the Public Law and Human Rights Department. And then when I started there, I realised that this was the area that I wanted to work in. So I was there for around 2.5 years. And whilst I was there, I started my process to qualify, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And then sort of following sort of the qualifying, I accepted the position at Law Stop, where I'm currently working as a senior caseworker, hopefully solicitor in the next few weeks, just sort of waiting for my paperwork to come back. So I think the main sort of message I wanted to get across in my talk was actually, it doesn't matter if you know what you're doing. Try something, give it 6 months, see if you like it, and don't be afraid to move on. Especially if you're sort of in a position where you don't feel valued, or you don't feel like there's any more room for you to progress. Like, you have to be quite sort of entrepreneurial about it in a way. Take the experience that you need, get it, next job. And also, like, because there's so much focus on, you will go to law school, you'll do your LPC, you will get a training contract, and there are so many other ways to qualify. And if you're applying for training contracts and not getting them, or for me, I just found the whole sort of process really offensive. I don't really have any commercial awareness, I don't want any, and nobody really none of these firms really spoke to me. I didn't really want to work there. You know, where's our firm going to be in 5 years? Like, you know, shouldn't they know that? Like, yeah, so that's kind of where I got to today. I'm just going to speak a bit more about the equivalent means process. So you can apply for an exemption from the training contract. I've sent Lucy the link to the page on the SRA website. She's going to tweet it. So if you want to like have a look through in a bit more detail after I've spoken, you'll be able to find it sort of on the live thread. Basically, you can apply for exemption from the training contract, which means that if you've done experience which is considered equivalent to a training contract, so you've done your 2 years of experience in 3 different areas of law, you can essentially apply to qualify without a training contract. The process is quite long, and I think when you first sort of open up the form, it can be quite daunting, but you essentially create a portfolio of all your experience, examples of your work in all the sort of key areas that you need to qualify as a solicitor. Yeah, so it's sort of quite similar to like Silex in a way, the way that you qualify. And once you've sort of done that, as long as you've done your LPC and PSC, you can then apply to qualify as a solicitor. The reason I sort of chose to qualify that way was that, yeah, none of the training contract applications appealed to me. I didn't want to work for those firms. It felt sort of pointless to me to go and, you know, get experience in other areas of law when I'd already tried quite a few and I knew exactly what it was I wanted to do. I wanted to stay and get good at what I want to practice in, rather than sort of doing the same work that I have already done in different areas. So I think that it's definitely something to think about or consider if you want to be a solicitor and, you know, you're not particularly interested in the training contract route, that, you know, there are other routes out there and you can gain this valuable experience. Because at first it kind of seemed like I didn't have a plan, and I didn't really have a plan when I first did it, to be fair. I was just like, oh no, I haven't found the right area yet, like haven't found the right firm. It just felt like I was sort of jumping around with no purpose, but it has actually in the long term turned out quite well, because I've been able to sort of use my experience from those different places in my portfolio of evidence. So yeah, so don't be sort of, you know, afraid to try new things, do something a bit different, work paralegal jobs. Like the amount of experience that I've gained through working paralegal jobs is, you know, incredible really. The kind of different firms will have different sort of you have responsibilities that are slightly different in different firms, but it's definitely something that's valuable. And in terms of sort of specific sort of tips for things to do at uni and things like that, a bit of networking is really important. One of my friends once got court marshalling experience because she went to one of those, I'm probably use the wrong term now because I'm not one, but one of those dinners that they have at the inns. She went to one of them and she made a joke to this High Court judge about creme brulee, and then she got work experience. So like being in the right place, and, you know, knowing people, and, you know, everyone's tired at the end of the day, but for a couple of years, just, you know, suck it up and go to these drinks, try and talk to like, you know, 2 or 3 new people each time you go, and just get your name sort of out there and around, and, you know, the opportunities will sort of come to you. You know, like some of the work experience that I've had has been in some of the strangest sort of ways. I watched a documentary once and there was a solicitor on there that was doing something like a small criminal defence firm. So I just emailed them and I was like, oh, I really like that documentary. Can I come and do some work experience? So like, you know, you can find ways to get work experience in all sorts of different places. So don't be sort of, you know, afraid to ask, you know, people that you know, for advice and tips. And, you know, if you go to an interesting talk, and you like sort of, you're interested in what they're talking about, drop them a message, see if they've got any hints and tips. Yeah, be quite bold with it. You know, sort of starting to weirdly be on the other side of these talks. Like nobody's gonna mind if you message them questions or you want to have a chat with them. Like, you know, I don't know about sort of commercial lawyers, so maybe don't approach any of them. But you know, we all do this kind of work because we love it. So we're generally nice people most of the time.
This is your 2-minute warning.
Oh, I have a 2-minute warning. Right, what else was I going to talk about? Yeah, maybe a little bit about the application form and examples. One thing that is important if you are going to qualify that way is that you definitely need the support of your employers. I don't think they'll be too happy if you start sending bits of your work to the SRA without them knowing. So they definitely need to know about it and be on board. Yeah, they definitely need to know about it, definitely need to be on board. The work that you submit with your application, it needs to be your work or work that, you know, you've drafted. And yeah, so it's quite difficult to find like the right pieces of work or ones that sort of demonstrate the skills sort of as best as you can. They're quite sort of heavy on the supervision element. So I ended up sending them like, I have like monthly sort of catch-ups with a solicitor, and I was sending them all my notes from that for the past sort of, when I was like 2.5 years at Irwin Mitchell. So I sent them all of those, all of my sort of appraisals and everything. So they are quite sort of heavy on that supervision element. That's quite important. And then I think the final thing to say is, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions. If we don't have time for your question or we don't get around to it, my contact details should be on the Twitter feed, so just get in touch with me and ask them to me. Yeah, definitely don't be afraid to message me. Ask me any questions about the process, about what it involves. More than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was really helpful. I didn't really know much about the process either, particularly when I was applying for training contracts. And I still don't know anyone apart from you who is qualified via that route. So I think it's really useful to hear you speak to our attendees today. Also, I just wanted to reiterate what Emma said about networking. Networking is not just for corporate and commercial lawyers, like it's so important for us as well. And start by just coming to our Young Legal Aid Lawyers meetings. There's no judges there, there's no partners, it's just people who are maybe 3 or 5 years ahead of you who understand what it's like and are more than happy to share their experiences and advice with you. So next up, Nutan.
Hello everyone, so thank you for having me. Really pleased to be on the panel this year. And so Tara's already done a short introduction about my background. So I'm a criminal barrister at 9 Bedford Road Chambers, predominantly practicing crime, but I'm also working on the public inquiry, the Grenfell Tower inquiry on behalf of the London Fire Brigade. So I'll just talk first about my path to the bar. As is the case for many of us, and as you'll hear from, I imagine, all of us panelists, it's often quite the journey to get to where you need to be. It's a tough profession, and it very rarely is smooth, but that's absolutely fine, because many of us still get to where we want to be eventually. So firstly, I'm one of those annoying people that always knew what I wanted to do ever since I was quite young. So I was about 12 when I decided that I wanted to be a barrister. So it felt as if I had plenty of time to research it and understand the world and how it worked and how the profession worked. But I still found it quite a struggle to really feel as if I could find a way in, and that it was accessible, and that it was something that I could work in. I knew that as a job I wanted to do it, but it felt quite intimidating. it felt quite daunting, and it always felt as if the odds were against you. So I did my undergraduate degree at King's College London. I did straight law. That was 3 years. I took a year out. I wanted a break before I started at law school, so I did some traveling. And then I went to Kaplan Law School to do the bar professional training course, and I was called to the bar in 2013. So that's almost now 7 years ago. And I didn't get pupillage straight away. And I found, in fact, that coming to the end of bar school and having been called to the bar, that I felt as if it was even difficult sometimes to get paralegal positions because I didn't have any real work experience. So what I then had to do was try to be quite creative and think about ways in which I could gather as much experience as I possibly could. And so at the time, whilst I was studying, I was also working part-time in retail, the weekends at Mulcair, which has sadly now gone into administration. But I worked there for over about 5 years, thinking that, you know, as soon as I get called to the bar, it's fine, I can resign, I can move on. But I actually ended up staying there for at least another year or so, because I found that what I needed was a bit of flexibility to be able to do some voluntary work and to open up my week to be able to do other things. So at one point I had about 5 roles in total, which included my part-time job at the weekends. I was also volunteering at the Nutan Monitoring Project, which was and is an anti-racist organisation that focuses on police misconduct, police complaints, and assisting people in the justice system if they're making those type of complaints. And this goes on actually with what's already been said regarding voluntary work. If you're doing good quality work somewhere and you're getting amazing experience, then that's really what you can take away from it. And it will definitely be counted as something significant as long as what you're doing there is something really valuable. And in the end, I was offered a paid position at that place after I volunteered for a few months because they were happy with the commitment that I was giving. And at the same time, I was also doing some outdoor clerking for a family law firm, which meant that I was running along to court with other barristers and taking a full note as much as possible to help them in their hearings. And on the side, every other fortnight, I was also doing an internship at a prison law firm. And I also volunteered for the National Centre for Domestic Violence, where I would draft emergency applications including the witness statements for women or men that were struggling and felt as if they needed some support in getting getting away from their partner based on the circumstances that they were in. So it was quite tough at some point, and I just had to, like I said, be creative. I had to do a few voluntary roles that were flexible that allowed me to do a bit more, so that when I was coming to my next few applications, I had a bit more to talk about. I eventually got a paralegal position at Hickman and Rose Solicitors in their civil litigation department, where I got some really fantastic experience and worked with some great solicitors. I was essentially working on actions against the police and inquests following deaths in police custody. So that was my first legal role, really. So that was around in 2014. That was like a fixed term contract. And following on from what Emma was saying, that when you're finding your journey, you do have to think very much about getting out what you need from something and then realizing it's fine to move on and pick up more experience. So it ran its course, it's fixed term contract. And then I was coming to a point in my life where I was getting married and I was moving into a new home. So I resigned early from there. Took a few months to rethink this process. At that point, I've been applying for 2 years for pupillage, and I was eventually picking up more experience and getting more interviews, but it still felt as if it was really far away. I then got a position in the regulatory department at Kingsley Napley Solicitors as a legal assistant, which again was really great. I was preparing investigations to do with fitness to practice, preparing the bundles essentially for when counsel would then be presenting them in the hearings. And it was not long after I was there that it came to like my 4th year, and it was very, very clear to me at this point that I felt as if it was my make or break year. I think my mental stamina was starting to really take a hit. And I really started to question whether or not perhaps I needed to just cut my losses and realize that this wasn't meant to be. But every time that I would have that thought, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't that I wanted to do, and that I still did believe that I could make a good barrister. So I thought that what I needed to do was really feel as if I put every ounce of energy into that application season. So I decided to take a bold move, and I resigned at Kingsley Napley and decided to spend every waking minute preparing for my pupillage interviews. And that was the year that I got pupillage. And so I spent quite a bit of time just making sure that that was always all that I was really putting my energy into, and I got a pupillage with the Crown Prosecution Service. And in fact, I kicked myself for not having applied there earlier. And this is really important, to be open when you're making applications to perhaps some experiences which you may not have considered, or you may feel isn't where you want to end up, but could still be a really great place to train and could end up being a good stepping stone. I really, really enjoyed my pupillage with the Crown Prosecution Service. And for those of you who are budding criminal barristers, I'd say first be open to both prosecution and defence, especially when you're quite junior. It's a really valuable experience to be equipped on both ends. But in particular, the pupillage at the Crown Prosecution Service is really quite flexible. It can be what you make it to be for yourself. You get so much exposure to all types of departments. You can enter the serious sexual assault and rape unit. You can enter the Crown Court trial preparation unit. You can spend a few days with the appeals unit and the homicide department. So it's really quite flexible. And when you enter into your second six, depending very much on who you end up paired with, my supervisor was a Crown advocate, which meant that he was in the Crown Court every day. And as long as he was happy with the work that I said that I would like to do, it was authorised, which meant that I had free reign, essentially. And, you know, as the weeks would go by, I would ask to pick up different types of hearings. And can I do an appeal hearing now? Can I do a few more PTBHs? Actually, I'd like to do more variety. I feel like I can do more serious work. So it was very, very flexible, and you often don't have that flexibility at the independent bar. So what I'd say to those who perhaps think that you couldn't dream of only prosecuting, or you wouldn't wish to be undertaking an employed pupillage, don't knock it. It's really, really fantastic. And when I finished, I felt that my confidence had really soared in comparison to, in particular, how I felt beforehand. I stayed at the Crown Prosecution Service for about 6-7 months afterwards, but ultimately felt that I wanted to be at the self-employed bar because I wanted to defend as well, and I wanted to see if I could evolve my practice and do other things. So I undertook a third six pupillage at another set of chambers. I spent some time there, probably about 10 months there, and I trusted my gut, and you should always trust your gut, and it just didn't feel right for me. So in the end, I decided to not apply for tenancy, and I moved to 9 Bedford Row. I did a third six with them, where I was very happy, and I felt it was exactly where I should be. And I applied for tenancy in February, and I was offered tenancy in February, and so now I'm one of their junior tenants. So I'm very happy with where I ended up. And the reason why I gave that detailed story is just to reassure all of you that even if you feel along your journey that things don't seem to feel as if they're working out, if you just keep going, hopefully you will end up where you want to be. So regarding some of the pointers, if I first talk about the application process, particularly when you're looking at, I know there's gateway and there's some that are non-gateway for pupillages, but really think about your chambers carefully and put them into groups. There may be some chambers where you feel you don't quite fit in, or it's not quite how you think you want your practice to go, but there do a few areas that you want to do. Keep a good variety, especially when you're first starting out, to understand how you're being received by different types of sets. And have a look at the profiles of their current pupils and their recent tenants, to have a look at their background. Do you feel it's a similar background to you? Do you feel they're doing work that you'd actually like to do? How is their practice progressing? And then go up slightly senior, what type of work are they doing? Is that the type of progress that you're looking for? And realistically, do you feel as if that's the career that you want? So really try hard to look at that. And in particular, they might do, and chambers often advertise, as do I'm sure firms, a good variety of work that they do, but they don't always have many practitioners that do all of those areas. And a lot of those chambers, when you click on the practice area, they may indicate on the left or the right how many barristers and at what level, whether it's junior or senior, actually undertake work in that area. So if you find that there's a particular area that actually you're really interested in, but when you look on the website, it's not really, it seems, available for junior tenants, if you were to apply and put a focus on that, it will in some way seem as if you don't fully understand exactly what that chambers is about. And actually, probably that chambers isn't the best fit for you if that's the type of work you're looking for, but really the juniors aren't doing it. With your written application, I'd say being as clear and concise as you can is really key. And I think that was what let me down the first year or two that I was applying, that I wasn't being very specific about each skill that I was picking up from the experiences. You don't have to put down all your experiences. You don't have to put down all your mini pupilages. Think very carefully about where you're applying and pick 1 or 2 examples and very concisely explain exactly what it is that will help you to become a good practitioner. Don't be embarrassed to ask your friends for help. Don't be embarrassed to ask people that you have shadowed on your mini pupilages, friends that already have pupillage. Just make sure that you ask for as much help as you can, because the more perspective that you get, the more likely you are to improve your applications. And interview similarly as well. There are INs that will help. There are often your law school will have a career service that do mock interviews. Ask your friends who already have pupillage interviews. Ask them if they kept a list of their questions. That's what I did. I wrote down a list of all the questions I was being asked over the years. I'd reflect over them. I'd share them with my friends. So all those really strange questions that you're going to end up getting asked about your personality type, it won't come as such a surprise. Regarding topical points, I used to keep a table each year of anything new that was coming through, developments with the law, and I'd prepare arguments both sides, and I'd try and speak to people that were already in practice about how it was actually affecting the profession, because often you get put on the spot in an interview about a topical point, and I've been asked sometimes a topical point and asked how I felt about it, and then on the spot asked to present an argument for the exact opposite side. And that's another kind of advocacy sometimes exercise that they ask you to do. So that's really quite helpful. General career hints, I'd say, for when you're a bit further down the line and perhaps when you have secured pupillage, is to think very much about really tenancy being the goal and not just your pupillage, because ultimately you'd hope that where you do apply is your home, and it's fine if it's not. There's a lot of movement at the junior end of the criminal bar. There's a lot of third sixes moving around. It's not held against you. I think that's one of the best parts of the profession. It's not held against you, and in fact you can just demonstrate that you're quite clear about what you want, and that's absolutely fine. But when you are undertaking pupillage or you're thinking about the next part, it's really important to have a good understanding, good relationship with your clerks, you'll have all your supervisors. You'll have often people in chambers that are quite clear for the complaints procedure. You'll have equality and diversity officers. I'm an equality and diversity officer for my set. So it's important that you understand what structure is in place to support you, so that you can make good decisions going forward and that you have that support. And when it comes to building your practice, I'd say the biggest support system you could probably have are your friends. And I learned that very quickly as I was going through the process. They're going to be the best people to keep you going. As much as senior barristers say that they remember what it's like, they're not going through it at the same time as you are. And it's your peers and it's your co-pupils and it's your co-trainees that understand exactly how you're feeling at that time. So where you can, I know some places put you in competition, but you'll find that you'll gain a lot more from your time there if you see each other as friends and as each other's first support system than if you see yourself as being in competition with each other. I'm conscious that I don't have much time left, but what I want to end with is something that was already mentioned beforehand when it comes to essentially just keeping yourself going. There are so many organisations that can give you support, that organisations that have organised this careers talk today, your INS, the Criminal Bar Association, there's the Association of Women Barristers, Women in Criminal Law. There are so many associations that offer support going forward. And certainly when you're applying, a friend once said to me when I was getting so frustrated at how many rejections, and I mean, I was often applying 20 times in a year. So I probably sent about at least 80 applications in 4 years. My friend would say to me, you don't need everybody to say yes. You only need one pupillage and you only need one training contract. Even if you were offered 10, you wouldn't be able to undertake all of them. So don't dwell so much upon your rejections and don't worry about every time someone is saying no. If this is what you want to do, just keep going, keep your spirits up, keep your friends close, and just keep going until someone says yes. So I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end, and I really hope that was useful.
Thank you, Nutan. That was fantastic advice there at the end. Just keep going. I think we prepared for interviews in a similar way. Nutan and I used to work together at Hickman and Rose back in 2014, and I also kept a document of every single question that I was asked, because you think that you remember, but you just don't. So I had the notes app on my phone was full of interview questions, and I also prepared 3 news stories for each interview that I knew I would be confident to talk about and to have a view each way. So fantastic advice, thank you. Next up, Ollie Percy from PLP.
Hi, thanks Tara. I'm going to go through my career path very, very quickly and then go on to some hints and tips and talk about the application process for the Justice First Fellowship a bit more. So I had a pretty conventional start to a career. I did a law degree at Oxford, 2010 to 2013. I then took a year out to get experience. I interned at the International Bar Association, an international criminal tribunal, which was focused on Rwandan genocide, and went to somewhere called the Media Legal Defence Initiative, and in that year. And honestly, the experiences I got there were not as good as the experiences that people got paralegaling. They might sound like fancy places. The actual skills I developed, less useful than being a paralegal. So don't get blinded by fancy titles. Go for something, go to places where you'll earn money and you'll get useful skills. Being a paralegal, you're going to get networks that can instruct you when you're at the bar later. Much more useful than a fancy internship. I was lucky enough to get funding and a place to go to New York University School of Law 2014, 2015. And there I specialized in international law, and I had grand plans of being a human rights lawyer in the States. I did a New York bar. I had a job offer from the American Civil Liberties Union after being a clinic student there. And then my visa got lost. So I had to have a rethink. But actually that worked out for the best. Oxford gave me a job the following year. That was great in comparative media law, really interesting, had a really fun year. And it was a good place to apply for pupillage and scholarships at the end of court, etc. Got lucky with in scholarships, didn't get lucky with pupillage, got to the final round at quite a few places, got food poisoning in one and had to leave a room to go and throw up at mid-final round interview, got an offer from another, turned out to be a mistake. Honestly, the most gutting pupillage offer day that you can imagine. And because they'd given me a hint I got it, I thought I kind of sacked off the other final round interviews. Terrible mistake, don't get cocky. Then I did bar course full time. The bar course is not great. I'm gonna put, it's being changed. Hopefully it'll improve. Huge amount of money, hugely irrelevant to most of practice. You will relearn how to write an opinion. If you're going into one area of law, you need to learn both in the bar course. And honestly, I respect to criminal barristers. It's a completely different skill set to the skills I have as a barrister. Public law barrister. I learned a bit about how to do criminal law in the bar course. Now I've forgotten it. I don't know how useful it was for me to have ever done it. And you might feel the same way about civil, I don't know. And so did that, and I applied for pupillage, and luckily I got pupillage at PLP. I was a bit like, what is a Justice First Fellowship pupillage? Do I really want to be doing pupillage at an employed pupillage? And then thinking about it, I was like, what really matters when you're applying for a training program, be that a training contract or a pupillage? And it's like the quality of training you're going to get. So I saw that the pupillage supervisor was a barrister called Alison Pickup, who had a really great reputation, had previously been at Doughty Street and had moved to public law projects. So I was like, okay, great, okay, good supervisor to train me. And what type of work? Oh, it's all claimant public law strategic litigation. That's the kind of stuff you wanted to do at the American Civil Liberties Union. So it's like, oh, that's actually quite cool. And you don't need to wear a suit every day. I was like, banging. That is the third most important thing on my to-do list when looking for a career. I hate wearing a suit, despite being a barrister. And so it actually worked out to be a total dream. And I'd never really thought about it before applying, and it was not how I imagined I would qualify. But it was so fun, and I got to build my own pupillage in a way because it had never been done before. And I just want to briefly talk about networking here, because I instinctively want to throw up when I hear the word networking because it sounds so sickening and like, ugh, like you're sort of faking an interest and like pushing yourself on people to try and make them like you. There are different ways to network. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to be proactive and organize stuff. And by organizing stuff, you get to know people and impress them by the work that you're doing. So work experience is a form of networking. It's not attending a drinks event. It's being on a job, learning skills and impressing people by doing. And I hopefully did that, but I also set up a couple of events that I'm really proud of, and that involved a lot of barristers and solicitors who have gone on to help me lots. The first one was the LSE Featherstone LGBT meet at LSE, and that involved organising lots of barristers to judge it, which was great networking for pupillage applications, and also lots of solicitors who might instruct me one day judge it as well. So it's a really good network. It's also like a good thing to do, like a network to show that the bar and the law generally is an LGBT friendly place. The second one was the Rebellious Lawyering Conference. Similarly, because I wanted to organise that conference and make it happen that I did it. It wasn't because of networking, but I met loads of useful people and who gave me support. And I was messing up final round interviews at the final step. And then my final round interview at PLP was Alison, who I've just mentioned, but also Ben Jaffe QC. And he judged the LGBT moot. So actually I was much more relaxed because I knew this guy already. And I knew that because he happened to judge this event that I organised before. And that's one of the benefits of networking. Like if you are proactive and put good energy into stuff, it comes back to help you at a later stage. And you might not have predicted that when you were doing it. And it's better that you didn't predict it because you're doing it for good reasons. And pupillage, I managed to design it in a way that I wanted it to be because I had lots of contacts. So I got my secondment to Matrix through arranging it with Sarah Hannett, who was one of the people I knew from the LGBT moot, and she became my pupillage supervisor at Matrix. I organised an event for young legal aid lawyers, and Amanda Weston QC from Garden Court spoke at it, and she arranged for me to go on all of Garden Court's training courses for their pupils. So you can really, if you're proactive and create contacts and try and put as much good energy and like thought into and dedication into what you want to go into, like that's going to have like ripple effects that you can't predict, and like sometimes they'll lead to nothing, but sometimes it can really help you. So that's how I ended up at PLP, and I had a brilliant time there. I spent 2 years on a Justice First Fellowship, qualified last October. I've stayed at PLP as an employed barrister, and I do a mix of immigration, discrimination law, mostly around EU citizens' rights at the moment, but more general health and social care issues as well. And it's a wonderful place to work, and I really like it. I'm also a trustee of Southwark Law Centre, and I'm going to briefly talk to what we look for on the other side of the desk when recruiting Justice First Fellows. So I've been on an interview panel twice for the Justice First Fellowship training contract at Southwark Law Centre. And Saida pretty much covered everything already. So I have very little to add. But the main thing that I would add or reiterate is know the client group that you're going to work with and understand what they need and what the organisation does to support them. So anyone that came into Southwark Law Centre to interview, but I wouldn't have got into interview to be honest, but anyone that wasn't really hot on what are the disadvantages facing this service user group, this client group, what can be done and what can the Law Centre do about it, just didn't stand a chance. So you're really looking for that understanding and dedication to the cause. Legal acumen is obviously hugely important, but like Saida said, grades and academic experience aren't everything. Practical experience and just sort of understanding of what you need to do to help a client, so much more important than having fancy bits of paper. Proven commitment. I would say that most people in the Justice First Fellowship are older than people that go in to do training contracts at city law firms. And that's because city law firms look for commercial awareness, which I think Emma was rightly skeptical of. the awareness that their law centres are looking for life skills awareness and understanding what vulnerable humans need. And that's something that you can't crib up ahead of an interview like you can for a city training contract. You have to learn it by doing it and being on the ground, supporting people, volunteering where you can. I know it's difficult if you've got dependents, and you have to be creative at fitting that in some way. But yeah, practical real life experience matters more than anything else when you're applying for the Justice First Fellowship. And that really can't be fast tracked. You need to do the hours, you need to slog it, you need to get that experience and that understanding. But it's really worth it. It's a terrific scheme to be a part of. And I would highly recommend that everyone who has the LPC, who wants to pursue a career as a social justice lawyer, look into the Justice First Fellowship. There are 19 this year. That's amazing. That's far more than
your 2-minute warning.
And I'm done. So I'm done early. So
that has never happened before.
That has never happened. I even set myself a timer so I'd finish early. So I'm done.
Thanks, Ollie. Thank you. Thanks so much for that advice and overview of your career so far. There was a question in the chat which I think you could answer probably best, Ollie. For the JFFs that are being recruited now, are they for a 2021 start or 2022?
So they would start this coming January.
Okay. If someone's looking for a 2022 start date, they should be applying this time next year.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm just going to have a quick look at the questions. A few questions for you, Nutan. Nutan, how many years was your journey to tenancy in total, and did you have a mentor along the way?
So I called to the bar in 2013. I suppose if you count my undergrad, I graduated in 2011. Called to the bar 2013, offered tenancy in 2020. So quite a number of years. But I don't regret the steps that I took and the risks that I took when I decided to leave certain places. So ultimately, I feel as if I'm really happy with where I ended up. Did I have a mentor? I suppose I had a few along the way. There were times when I did take up opportunities with the inn, and you find that people that are volunteering for places like the inn and that, they are literally volunteering their time. So they really do want to help. And sometimes it can be very hard to hear the criticism, but I had a mentor with the inn. And also when I did my pupillage, my supervisor was really so supportive, even when I decided I wanted to leave. And he essentially still acts as a mentor to me now, even if I have an issue in court sometimes, and I think I just want to quickly call someone, I still call him for help. So as you're going along the way, you'll meet people that you know are offering their help and advice outside of whatever meeting you've had with them. And I would say take them up when they say that they're happy for you to get in touch afterwards, because they usually are. And what do you have to lose? You'll just probably meet a lot of people along the way that are happy to help.
Can I just add something in there? I completely forgot to mention Young Legal Aid Lawyers Mentoring Scheme, which is such a fantastic opportunity. And if you go to our website, there's an opportunity to sign up for a mentor. And I was one of the most helpful things for me when I was going on my journey to becoming a barrister. Like I got Rachel Francis at One Pump Court was assigned as my mentor through Wylau, and like I still occasionally go to her for help. Like, she's great. And you look for my pupillage applications, and it was really nice to see someone who had actually made it at the bar, doing exactly the kind of sort of social justice work that I wanted to do. So yeah, thanks to Wylau's mentoring scheme.
Thanks, Ollie. Another question for you, Nutan. You mentioned that you always knew that you wanted to be a barrister, but after 4 years working in a few firms, you questioned this. Do you think you are seen as more successful, sorry, it's moved, now that you're a barrister rather than a solicitor? And how did you make this decision?
I think that's a really good question. And it's a really good question to ask yourself when you're deciding what you want to do. Firstly, I think it's so important to define success by your own definition and not be concerned about how it might be viewed to other people, or the general perception of any type of role, whether it's in the legal profession or in any profession. And I think the reason why I questioned whether or not I wanted to remain committed to a career at the bar was because I was tired. I was tired of applying for so long. I was tired of getting so many rejections. And so I questioned that. And when I really thought about what else I would do, I realized that I still wanted to be a barrister. And so ultimately, I think I would have regretted not pushing myself to the limit and not continuing to keep going. And that's how I decided, because as tired as I was and as fed up as I was, it's still all I wanted to do. And I genuinely believed that I had the skill set to do it. And so that's why I kept going.
You're on mute, Tara.
Sorry. There's a question about case study interviews. How do you prepare for them? Emma, would you mind answering that question? I think you might be the best person from a solicitor side.
I don't think I've ever done one. I had one interview where I had to, there's like a list of all these different people coming into the firm and you had to decide who to see first. I had a case study question in my interview for my current job and completely messed it up. So I don't know if that makes you feel better. Yeah, I was asked about sort of a specific sort of piece of community care law that I'd never come across before. I just sort of, you know, explained that, said, you know, that's not something that I've come across before. And then, you know, they sort of responded to that and sort of guided me through it. I did actually end up getting offered the job the same day, but so yeah, I think, yeah, be honest if you don't know what it is. And, you know, a lot of things you can be quite logical about and think about sort of like practical steps. Don't sort of rush into answering straight away. You know, there's always time to sort of pause and take a deep breath and, you know, have a drink of water or, you know, do something to give yourself that little bit of pause. But yeah, don't panic, take your time, think about it logically, and yeah, just be honest. If you don't have a clue, you know, just say that.
Thanks, Emma. I've also had a few case study interviews, and I would just echo what Emma said, and also just remember that they're not expecting perfection. Like, they're interviewing for trainees or for paralegals, and they want to see, one, how you are under pressure, and two, how you think, so how you get to a particular answer. And, you know, there will be times in your career in 10, 20 years' time when you are put on the spot by the judge or by the other side, and you need to show that you can deal with that and that you won't just fudge it or lie. And there's nothing wrong with saying that you've never come across this before, but this is what I might do if I did. I'm just going to see the other questions. Oh, this is a good question. How do you impress in interviews when you are aware that you are younger and less experienced than the others applying? Do you want to take this, Ollie?
Yeah, if you're younger and less experienced than the others applying, it is difficult because, like, life experience is a valuable thing to have. But also, I guess they need to be looking at potential. And if you haven't had the chance to show that you to be where someone is who has 4 years more experience, you have to show that you have the potential to be as good as them or better than them in a short period of time. And I think it's by having a clear focus on what you can, how you get there is the way that you achieve that. So if you've done a lot in a short period of time, that's great. It shows that you're going to achieve a lot in the next short period of time. Having a clear plan of what you're going to be doing, being prepared for the interview so that you are absolutely red hot on all of the issues, so that they know that you're going to work as hard or harder than your competition. So yeah, I was young for a Justice First Fellowship. I got it because I think I answered it. There were substantive law questions which I answered well, which is obviously going to be a part of it. But I had a clear plan about what I wanted to do. I was clearly committed to what I wanted to do, even though I had fewer years of practical experience. I'd really pushed myself in the time that I had. And I guess I showed potential, but it's really tricky.
I'd just chip in at the end of Ollie, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
You say young and experienced, like you are experienced. You know, you've had your studying. There'll be like, you know, there's like, oh, tell me about a time you dealt with something challenging. Like that could be something at uni that could be challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you could have. I always say that you can tell a lot about a person when you ask them what their worst ever job was. So mine was working night shifts at a service station, and like actually, like it's like when I was sort of earlier on in my career, like everybody's really interested in that. They were like, what, you're on your own in a service station? Like, you know, what happened? Like, you know, what happened if someone stole something? Yeah, and I think that, you know, it might not necessarily at the start always be law related, but you know, you can show like compassion if you're caring for a relative. You can show like, you know, I'm always like incredibly impressed by any sort of parents that manage to parent and do law, or like, you know, I think that's more valuable than quite a lot of things at proving just sort of how organised and efficient they are.
Yeah, definitely. And also don't try and fudge an answer. If you don't have the experience, be honest about it and own it. So in my final round interview at PLP, I was asked about whether I had any like substantive domestic English case law experience and casework experience, and I did not. And I just completely fronted it up and was like, nope, I don't. But I want to learn. And look how I adapted in this previous situation, going to America, learning how to do it there. If I can learn it there and do it there in a different jurisdiction, I can learn it here. So be open, honest, front up your weaknesses, and be prepared to be asked about your weaknesses at interview and have a good answer ready.
I could also add, absolutely echo what both have already said, to not underestimate also your non-legal experiences. I always put down the work that my time at Mulcair on my applications, because it demonstrated that I was balancing a number of things, demonstrated that I could be self-sufficient. I was trying to financially support myself. And actually that I had some difficult times there as well. I often got asked what my most difficult time was at Mulcair, and I once had a customer that went into labour as I was conducting a bra fitting. So that was quite a stressful experience. So that you don't undermine what you have that may not necessarily be strictly legal or what seems really high profile or hugely an experienced role and things like that. Everything that you have is probably something you can pull from it.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that's been said. Be prepared for the question, what did X teach you about being a lawyer? What are your transferable skills? I was asked in my training contract interview at my firm, I'd worked as a receptionist part-time while I was studying, and I was specifically asked, what transferable skills did that give you? And make sure you have like 3 points to say. It taught me to manage my time properly, it taught me to deal with stressful situations, and it taught me to work in a team. And those are all skills that you will use every day as a solicitor or a barrister. One question, Ollie, from Coyote. Will there be pupillage spaces next year through the JFF scheme? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't think there will be. I think the plan is to move away from pupillages for the JFF, which I think is a real shame because I love mine. But they're focusing on training contracts, and I think the idea is to support very junior practitioners at social welfare bar. So to move the financial support from pupillage to the sort of juniors at the junior bar who really struggle in private practice because there's a really bad billing pipeline with the legal aid agency, etc. So I think the plan, not sure if that's finalised, is to sort of divert support that way. So the Legal Education Foundation hasn't forgotten about the bar, but they're trying to move the support into a different area.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. I think that's everything, and we're finishing just on time. So Thank you so much to everyone who joined us on their Saturday afternoon. I really hope that you found this discussion helpful. If you have and you're on social media, please do let us know by tagging the festival's Twitter account and using the hashtag Young Lawyers Making Change. And of course, thank you so much to our 4 wonderful panelists. It's been so interesting and inspiring to hear from you all and to hear your career hints and tips. Our next session is on Monday at 6 o'clock, and the topic is social welfare after COVID. So please do join us if you can. And thanks again, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, bye.